This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. All that investment in electric vehicles isn't paying off. There are probably only 3 EV makers in the world that are profitable right now. And yet, Mexico is developing its own EV. The president of the country, Claudia Sheinbaum, says Mexico has prototypes for a compact electric car that can be produced domestically. She didn't say which companies could make it, but she said Mexican manufacturers will work with researchers on developing multiple models. The goal of the project is to become less reliant on imports and strengthen Mexico's own supply chain. The vehicles would be alternatives to Chinese-made mopeds and Indian mini cars that have become popular in parts of the country. And Mexico better move fast, because China has a huge head start and it's only picking up speed. We finally got car sales for last month in China, and while it took a while for the numbers to get reported, it was a pretty good month. Automakers sold almost 2.3 million vehicles. That was actually down 6% from last year, but it was up 5.4% from the month before, showing that the car market is starting to recover. Most impressively, new energy vehicles, or NEVs, accounted for nearly 1.3 million of those total sales, up a whopping 42.3%. EVs accounted for 775,000 units, up almost 24% compared to last year. But the real segment to keep an eye on is with plug-in hybrids, which includes extended range EVs. Consumers bought over 500,000 PHEVs, up a staggering 84% compared to last year, and exports shot up more than 21% to 539,000 vehicles. At that rate, China is on track to export nearly as many vehicles as GM, Ford, and Stellantis will build in North America. And let's stick with China for a moment. While Tesla's Cybercab got all the headlines last week, Baidu showed off its Robotaxi, and it offers compelling competition to Tesla. The Yiqi 06, which is actually manufactured by JMC, is priced around $29,000. It's a 4-seat minivan that can carry more people and cargo than the 2-seat Tesla Cybercab, and it has an LFP swappable battery pack. But the autonomous tech inside all comes from Baidu, which is kind of like the Google of China. The system features 40 sensors, including 5 LiDARs, and the complete hardware and software stack. And while the Cybercab will not be available until 2026 at the earliest, Baidu's Robotaxi is available right now, and it even plans to offer Robotaxi rides outside of China before the Cybercab is out. Last week, we reported that anyone who bought a Fisker could be stranded, but a last-minute deal looks like it's going to solve the situation. Here's the background. Fisker did a $46 million deal to sell some of its remaining fleet of 3,000 Ocean SUVs to a company called American Lease. But that deal hit a speed bump when American Lease realized that Fisker wouldn't be able to transfer data and support services to a new server. That meant the vehicles would no longer receive OTA software updates, and remote access and diagnostics wouldn't be available. But the two sides came to an agreement. American Lease will pay an additional $2.5 million over 5 years for future tech support services, which will also apply to Ocean's purchase by private owners. And now that Fisker has resolved that issue, a U.S. bankruptcy judge has approved its bankruptcy plan, allowing the company to use the money to pay off creditors. Toyota is getting back into Formula One in a limited way. It's going to provide design, manufacturing, and technical services to the Haas Formula One team. This does not include engines, as Haas has a partnership with Ferrari that lasts until 2028. Toyota also wants to groom Japanese drivers to compete in F1, though Haas currently has other drivers under contract for the next several years. Haas is one of the smallest teams in the sport, but this year it's been punching above its weight, with a lot of credit going to team principal Ayo Komatsu, who's Japanese. Sorry if I grossly mispronounced that name. But with Toyota lending a hand, we expect to see more progress at Haas. You know all that yucky, disgusting plastic floating around in the ocean? Well, Kia is helping to do something about it. It developed a trunk liner made from recycled plastic from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The limited edition liner is available in the EV3 in select markets. Kia says the liner, which contains 40% ocean plastic, is just as durable and protective as a conventional liner. It partnered with a group called the Ocean Cleanup to help sort, recycle, and process the plastic. Kia says it's aiming for its vehicles to contain more than 20% recycled plastic by 2030. And it's not the only automotive company involved. The supplier Magna developed seat covers that use recycled plastic that was fished out of the ocean. The Paris Auto Show has started to kick off, and we think there's a number of interesting reveals, plus a few that weren't even at the show. Renault moved from giving us teasers of the Renault 4 a few weeks back to pulling the wraps off the all-new model, which is based on the same platform as the Renault 5. No word when it will be out yet, but the 4 will be available with an all-electric powertrain that provides up to 400 kilometers or roughly 250 miles of range. Now, over to Renault's performance brand, Alpine. Its transition to electric started with the A290, which is also based on the Renault 5. But Alpine's next EV will be a low-slung SUV, and it showed a concept version called the A390 Beta. It says you'll see some styling elements of the Beta make it over to the production model. But, again, no word when that version will launch. However, it is supposed to come out before the electric version of the A110, which we think would be based on a different platform from the current car. But until then, an even more extreme version of the A110 is going on sale for 265,000 euros, and it showed off a 740 horsepower hydrogen-powered 3.5-liter V6 in the Appenglow concept, which first debuted 2 years ago. Sticking to the sporty theme, Skoda, which is part of VW, wanted to see what would happen if it gave the rally treatment to the Enyaq EV, and this is what it came up with. The reworked model is lower, wider, and clearly has a number of aerodynamic parts added on. But composite parts and other weight savings measures trim 316 kilograms or nearly 700 pounds of mass. Speaking of platform-sharing EVs, Lynk & Co., which is part of Geely, revealed a new small electric crossover that's like its own version of the Volvo EX30. It's called the O2 in Europe and the Z2O in China, and it will offer up to 440 kilometers or 273 miles of range. Starting price in Europe will be roughly 35,500 euros, which is almost exactly the same as the EX30. Now let's move down a couple of rungs on the EV ladder to the Citroen Ami. The model is getting a slight refresh, and designers showed off a new buggy concept with fat tires, flared wheel arches, tube doors, and a two-tone roof. Citroen also pulled the wraps off a refreshed C4 and C4X, which get new front and rear styling. And then you kind of see an evolution of that front-end styling in the all-new C5 Aircross concept. It's based on the Stella Medium platform and will inspire a production model that's supposed to come out sometime next year. And we'll end with BMW. For the first time, it displayed two electric mini John Cooper Works models at the same time. Both the John Cooper Works Electric and the JCW Aceman feature the same 54 kilowatt-hour battery pack and nearly 260 horsepower drive system. But it doesn't say if they're front, rear, or all-wheel drive. The three-door will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.9 seconds, while the JCW Aceman does it in 6.4. With more size and weight, the Aceman also has less range at 355 kilometers versus 371 for the John Cooper Works Electric. On top of these models, BMW revealed some of its hydrogen plans for passenger cars as well. It will come out with the iX5 Hydrogen in 2028, which will likely use a fuel cell system from Toyota. The two formed a partnership in 2013, then showed the iX5 Hydrogen in 2019, then prototypes came in 2021, and finally a test fleet hit the road last year. So, it's been a slow rollout. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by ZF.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
Developing today's vehicles. Issues can happen in an instant. When's the best time to solve a problem? The minute you know you have one. Meet Wireless NeoVi Cloud, your secure, off-the-shelf solution empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless NeoVi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless NeoVi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Performance that shines, even in the rain. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza tires, improved grip in wet conditions.